Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Orange County Industrial Development Agency Board Meeting for April 16th, 2025. The time is now 5:06. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Bill to do the roll call, please.
Yes. Jeffrey Christ.
Here.
Dean Tamburri.
Here.
Susan Walsky.
Here.
Mark Green.
Here.
Giovanni Palladino.
Here.
Dr. Vincent Odock.
Here.
6 of our 7 members are present. For staff, myself, Bill Fioravanti, Kelly Riley, Marty Barras on remote. Dylan Burke is handling our audio visual. We also have our counsel here, General Counsel Rudy Zoda, our bond counsel Dan Birmingham, and a few guests. We have Natalie Quinn here joining us in person, representing the Banna Hospitality Project. We have Mr. Bart Lansky, attorney, as well as Keith Perez, and I thought I saw Ann Urin here, who represent the Cornwall Hotel Project, and I think that's everyone.
Thank you, Bill. Notice of this meeting was properly provided, and we have proof of that in the packet. I'd like to note before we move to the next items on the agenda that we need to add adopt personnel policy for consideration of approval under new business and adjust the sequence of the agenda today, if that works, moving to old business.
Yes, great.
Which would be Two Girls, One Boy Holdings LLC, also known as the Cornwall Hotel, and consideration of a final resolution. Bill.
Great. Yes, of course, they appeared 2 months ago, and then we had a public hearing for this project on March 27th. The hearing went very well. It's pretty well attended, only a few speakers, but it did go well, and I have received a number of inquiries and phone calls, people trying to understand the benefits being requested, etc. Had a number of long conversations, but really happy to do it. I really found that we had an opportunity to explain exactly what the benefits were being requested and what weren't being requested, such as a pilot, and also trying to give them a sense of how much the town is actually potentially giving up. Because the applicant did request sales tax exemption that would be about $500,000, so very meaningful to the project. But half of that sales tax goes to the state, the other half goes to the county. The county doesn't just give it to the municipality where it was generated. They usually distribute it. A lot of counties, you don't have to distribute it. They choose to, and we estimated the town would probably get about $30,000 in sales tax from that, so that's what they're giving up, and then an even smaller amount for mortgage recording tax. So people did understand what the sacrifice was, so to speak. Not that it's coming out of anyone's pocket, but understanding the benefits of this project, which, by the way, this was provided by the applicant. You have the sheet in front of you. It has their projections on the second page for what they expect to generate in terms of occupancy tax, sales tax, all of that. That's in there. And they also have a few other benefits they've itemized here. And then attached to that is our cost benefit analysis using our MRB tool and just boiling it down. It always talks a bit about a benefit to cost ratio, the local benefit to cost being the incentives that are being provided. It's a ratio of 60-to-1 benefit to cost. So we do have the applicant on if there are any additional questions, but this is before you now looking for final approval.
And that resolution is in our packet.
It is.
And that was sent to the board last week.
Correct. Along with the transcript of the hearing.
Yes. Any questions, board, comments? I attended the public hearing and concur with Bill's take on that.
As long as people have asked questions have been answered, I think financially there's more than enough validity, so I have no other questions.
We down to a vote?
I think so. Motion.
Do you have anything to add, Rudy?
No, this is an authorizing resolution. It might be a little different than the IDA's previous process. We do an inducement resolution, and we have the public hearing. So now this is the authorizing resolution, authorizing the IDA to sign the documents to provide the benefits and set up a closing in the future after the loan documents and organizational documents, insurance is provided from the applicant.
And I imagine you would recommend a roll call vote?
Absolutely, yes.
Bill, would you begin that
Should we have a
roll call?
motion?
Oh, we need a motion. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone care to make a motion
I'll
to
make the
approve the resolution? By Mark Green. Thank you. Second to that motion.
I'll second.
Giovanni Palladino. We do have a motion and a second. Roll call vote,
Any
please.
other discussion? I'm sorry.
Yeah, any other discussion?
Okay, roll call. Jeffrey Christ,
In favor?
Dean Tamburri,
Yes.
Susan Walsky,
Yes.
Mark Green,
Yes.
Giovanni Palladino,
Yes.
Dr. Vincent O'Donnell.
Yes, please.
6 ayes
And one absence.
and 1 absence, absolutely.
And the resolution is passed. And that completes our process there, I believe. Rudy?
Yes, they're now authorized and we can proceed to prepare documents and move to closing.
Very good.
Mr. Perez, Mr. Lansky, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all your work and communication through this. Good luck the rest of the way, and we'll stay in contact.
And thank you to the board for the professionalism, and have a good night.
Great,
Yeah,
thanks for joining us.
Take care.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business, Banta Hospitality LLC, and this is an initial resolution for inducement, I believe. And Bill, would you introduce that
Yes,
subject?
we received this application recently for a 93-room hotel, a Holiday Inn Express, on the site of the former Steak and Stein restaurant on Route 300 here in the town of New Windsor. A lot of people are familiar with that. They are requesting a pilot, which under our UTEP, if approved, qualify for a 10-year pilot, as well as sales tax exemption and mortgage recording tax exemption. The owner are the Bantas. They've done a lot of development, hotels, restaurants, and such in the area. George Banta Jr. was going to join us, but he's out of town today. So we do have a representative from their project team, Ms. Natalie Quinn. She's from KARC. She's Director of Planning and Development for them. And we're going to kick it to her to let her introduce the project, if you're ready.
Yes, please.
Natalie, please.
Can I be, am I heard from
You
here?
can stay here if you would stand.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
Yep.
easier.
Yep.
As long as we got her on camera, right?
Here she
Yep,
comes.
there we go.
It should
It'll find
follow
me,
you.
okay. So yeah, Natalie Quinn, I work with KARC Planning Consultants, and we've been working with the Bantas on this project for the last year to kind of get them to this point. As was mentioned, Mr. Banta will join us for the next meetings. He just couldn't attend this one, so I'll try to answer all the questions for him. Wanted to give a little bit of background for those who may not be familiar with Banta Hospitality. So they do own and operate 19 hotels currently. There's a majority of them are in New York State. There's a few in Connecticut or New Jersey. So they have a lot of experience with the hospitality industry, both hotels and restaurants, as they used to run the restaurant that was on site formerly. They most recently did a project in Middletown. If you look at the La Quinta that's done there. We do have an identified contractor for the project, so it won't be Banta themselves, but they will work with Hudson River Construction, which is based out of Newburgh, the city of Newburgh. And then this site in particular, which I'll talk a little bit more about, they've owned this site since 1970. They ran the restaurant on site up until about 2016 when that closed, and then since that time they've been working on the planning board approval and working out the plan for the redevelopment of this site into the hotel. So just a little background on that this project, or the process of planning board approval, planning board review did start back in 2017 with the town of New Windsor. There was COVID and all kinds of things that got that held up during kind of 2020, 2021. But the project did receive approval in 2022, beginning of 2023 when everything was signed. Since that time, they have, at the request of the town of New Windsor, they have done demo work on site to demolish the existing structure, which was kind of starting to fall apart, and to clean up the site. So that cost has been pulled out of the amounts that are in front of you. So where it says site work demo, the pricing that's cited there is just for the site work for the new construction. We've removed kind of the demolition costs for that. Just a little bit more about the project. As mentioned, 93 rooms within it. This is called a limited service hotel, in that it is just kind of rooms and amenities for guests. There's no conference center or large restaurant associated with it, which would be more of a kind of full service hotel. There is 94 parking spaces, as was approved by the planning board, as well as, total footprint of the site is just over 54,000 square feet. So that's kind of, I think, basic overview of the site. I think you guys have the application materials in front of you. Happy to, this is just the intro, so happy to jump into as much of that as we want. But as mentioned, the project is requesting the standard 10-year pilot, as well as sales tax in the amount of $782,053.01, as well as mortgage reporting tax in terms of $82,800. That's general introduction. Happy to answer any questions that I can, and then if I can't, I'll note them down, and Mr. Banta and I will get you responses to those for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yes.
And I tried to ask most of these things in advance, and you were great about giving us responses. Thanks so much. But on your budget, for the project budget on page 15,
Yes.
land acquisition is actually a line item on there for $3.2 million. I will note to the board, that was not factored into the calculation of their request, because sales tax is based upon just the construction materials and such, so it doesn't include land acquisition. But I wanted to ask, since they've owned the property for a long time, was it sold to this LLC? Can you help us understand? Or is it just an old price from when they acquired it years ago?
I believe that is an old price. I'll have to check if that was with the,
If you would, please.
yeah,
I
I'll
understand if you
double
don't
check
have
on
that
when that
information.
transition happened.
If you could clarify that,
Uh-huh.
please, that'd be great. Thanks.
Other questions from the board? Mark?
So, this really should be a simple answer, but do you foresee any special needs in building this facility that couldn't, or you would expect to not be able to be done by our local unions, as far as our iron workers, as far as anything goes? Like anything that would require outside specialized labor?
I don't believe so. I don't believe that's the intent. I'll clarify that, but like I said, we have our GC and our team kind of identified already. With, I guess, some materials, I'll have to double check on that, but in terms of the labor, that's all intended to be local.
And you have gone through, you're asking for a lot. You've gone through rigorously with all of our requirements for employment and local and all of those type of things, right?
Yes, we reviewed those policies,
Okay,
absolutely.
do you expect any kind of modification or any kind of exemption? Thank you.
Yep.
Exemption?
We're not requesting any exemptions.
Do you foresee any potential for that?
I will rehab the conversation again with Mr. Banta
Please
so
do.
we can, but we reviewed all the policies before applying, and we did not identify any need for those exemptions, so I think we'll speak to that in more detail at the next meeting, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Green, with all due respect, and I just don't want to have any misunderstanding. The local labor policy does require local labor, but not necessarily union. So just wanted to
I understand that.
Okay, just wanted to
I
clarify.
understand that.
Sure.
I just,
Are we
Right.
seeking any deviation from what your policies are?
Right, right.
But I'm glad Mark brought that up, because we don't want to hold up the building either, correct? I mean, we've had that in the past where like they need to get something done immediately, and it's like, well, it doesn't conform with the policy, it puts
Yeah.
everybody in different positions.
Yeah,
But question, I mean, how many stories was the building?
4 stories.
4 stories? And do you have any DOT work in the road is required for this?
There's two existing access points to the site left over from the restaurant, so we'll have normal kind of work permits if we, just for kind of, I think probably redoing those aprons to clean them up, but we're not anticipating any change there. So we'll consult with DOT, but I don't believe we're changing
Can't
the.
turn in some sort of turning lane or something you're not aware of?
No, that review was done during the site plan review with the planning board. That was discussed in terms of whether that would be necessary, and it was deemed not.
Mhm.
Yeah, excuse me.
Doc?
Yeah, I know you probably maybe answered this question in your forms, the forms you applied. Just I'll ask that question again.
Okay.
Can you go through the project without any financial aid from IDA?
No, I think we're here, that's, you know, this past year, like I said, the approvals were granted. And there has been an attempt to try to move forward with the project, right, without any IDA benefits. Where we're landing is the cost of construction for this project is just not supported by the operation of it, right? So IDA benefits have been identified as needed for this project to proceed, at least for that first 10 years for the construction and for the project to be viable in this beginning stage. Yeah, of course.
I have a question.
Susan?
So the approvals that we received in our packet from the planning board, I
Yeah.
believe had like a 2019 approval date, and you're saying 2022 you got approval? So I'm a little bit confused, and the other part of that is the New York State Energy Code has changed several times since even 2022.
Mhm.
Are you gonna have to go before the planning board again with updated site plan?
Yeah, so 2019 was the date that the findings, the EIS was received.
Okay.
Right, so because there was an EIS that was completed for this project, and so a finding statement, right? Rather than the traditional EAF for seeker, the full environmental impact statement was completed. So that October 2019 date is actually the date it was received. But that finding statement was granted, was adopted on October of 2021.
Okay.
And then the project was officially approved November 2022, with the resolution being signed January 18, 2023.
And did they give you the time limit for that approval? Because it's
Yeah.
3 years ago already.
Yeah, so the time limit in the code is 1 year, you can request a 1-year extension. We did file a demo permit, so that time limit of site plan approval is until you file for a building permit. So we are in conversations right now with the town of Windsor to make sure that demo permit, which we filed to do the work requested by the town, kind of ends that time frame of the site plan approval, so that was kept alive, and then the demo permit will now have to file the necessary building permits to kind
Okay.
of keep that alive. So we are working to just get that, make sure the town and everybody is like very clear on those dates and what was done. But I appreciate you, that level of detail. And then the New York State Energy Code, I think at this point, we're identifying that there may be modifications within our building permit application, but nothing that would affect the site plan
Okay,
development that would require reapproval by the planning
Okay.
board.
thank you.
Yeah, of course, thank you.
Anybody else? Good questions.
I just wanna, and how long has the restaurant not been open, or how long has the building been sitting? Or you said 2000, what was it?
2016 is when the restaurant stopped operating, restaurant closed. And then they kind of started that process immediately after in front of the planning board. It just took a number of years. And then it was demoed, the building wasn't demoed until 2023 though. So over those years is when it started to kind of deteriorate, and that's why the town requested that it come down immediately.
And that building is gone now. It looks like the site might still have a little bit of cleanup at ground level.
Yeah, I mean, just the demo work was done, no site preparation work to prepare for new construction. It was really just take the building down. There was some initial cleaning up of brush and stuff like that across the site to tidy it up, putting a fence around it to kind of block it off a little bit, but
It was in rough shape.
yeah. Yeah.
Rough idea, and I realize it probably is buried somewhere in here. Full-time jobs, part-time jobs?
Full-time jobs, they have, I think it's 2 management. We're anticipating 7 to 8 professional, which would be kind of like marketing, accounting, things like that, and then 15 staff, which would be room maintenance, cleaning, front desk, things like that. So altogether, 15, 16, 17, 25
And that's
Okay.
full-time or
full-time.
full-time?
Yeah.
Okay. And then,
And then the construction jobs, I noticed we did not have those in our application. I don't know if this board looks
We
at
don't
cons-
request it, but it's
Don't request
certainly
it
a factor
in
if you
terms
wanna
of
share that, yeah.
construction, number of construction jobs.
If
Yeah,
everything
full-time
goes,
equivalent is what those numbers were. So there may be more than 15 people on the roster.
if everything goes well, when do you think construction may start?
They are ready, if the board chooses to kind of grant the benefits, understanding this process may take a few months, plus the closing, kind of looking at if they can get in the ground before winter, they'd like to start this fall. that's what I'm thinking about in terms of the timeline. We did update some of those sheets because I think we had old timelines. So assuming kind of 5-month process of review and closing, we look at shovels in the ground in August, September, beginning of September.
And your ideal open date?
We anticipate a 14-month construction, so 14, beginning of, that'd be end of 2025, so beginning of 2027.
And we did receive 2 supplemental pages amending their dates, so it shows start date of construction September 25, end date November 26, and then anticipated date of occupancy November 26.
So end of 26, beginning of 27.
I have a couple copies if you want them, but we just received that yesterday.
Bill, I have a question, just, it's really geared towards you. So when you do your analysis, right, there's obviously a construction cost. Do you have a contingency or a factor in the event that inflation affects the cost of construction? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, it's accelerating.
Sure is. It's actually computed based upon the total capital expenditure for the project. The tool calculates that, but I think that's a really good question that I should inquire with them about, based upon what's happening with costs around that, if there's some adjustment needed for that.
Especially if I'm
I will.
assuming the building is wood.
Stick built?
Yes,
So, the whole issue with tariffs with Canada, because our wood locally, 90% of it comes from Canada. So, I mean, 25, 30% hike could be substantial. I don't know how that impacts our review.
Just from our perspective, if the costs do increase, the applicant should provide that information to the board with the backup information for what the increases are,
Yep.
and then increase their requests, and then we would do an amended authorizing resolution that would be approved
So it
or
would have to come back
contemplated
to
by,
us, right?
yes, if they wanted more benefits.
I'm just saying from a timing perspective.
Yeah, it's a lot of unknown right now.
Another thing I'd love to add, just, it doesn't affect your decision at all, but just, it's good to know that this project, I don't know if you covered this, Natalie, but they applied for incentives years ago. In 2019, they were approved, but because how much time has passed and the conditions changing a little bit, we did inquire them after speaking with the council. We told them that we want them to reapply entirely, just so you know the
Kind of
history
makes
there.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the cost has changed significantly
Sure.
since that time as well. The project cost almost doubled, so it made sense to reapply as well.
Rudy, would you just tee up, I think it has to be the inducement done 30 days before the earliest public hearing date, is that correct?
The inducement should be, the resolution should be approved, and then within 30 days, yes, the public
Within.
hearing.
Oh, scheduled, or takes place,
Takes,
public hearing.
takes place.
Oh, okay, so that's a pretty, I didn't fully realize that window is that okay with the applicant?
That public
Probably
hearing,
desirable?
but sooner we can get comments and start having those conversations,
I
the
believe you
better.
need 10 days' notice,
Yeah.
right? So, yes. We have ample time.
Oh. Okay. Any other questions, board members, Rudy or Bill, or?
What we're looking at now is a vote to authorize a public hearing, essentially, right, in the inducement? Yeah.
Basically, yes.
Would anyone care to make that motion to
I'll make the motion.
move in the inducement resolution? Thank you. By Susan, second by Mark. Any other discussion, questions? I'll ask for the vote. Should that be a roll call?
Yes.
Roll call,
Yes,
please.
Jeffrey Christ,
In favor?
Dean Tamburri,
Yes.
Susan Walsky,
Yes.
Mark Green,
Yes.
Giovanni Palladino,
Yes.
Dr. Vincent Oda.
Yes.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Motion
Very
carries.
good. Motion
Thank you.
carried. The inducement resolution is passed. Thank you for being here,
Thank you very much,
Natalie.
yeah, appreciate it.
We'll be in touch,
Okay.
obviously, we communicate. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Is anyone waiting on Royal Wines? Do you want to knock that out?
Oh, yeah, let's just do that one. Royal Wine is a quick one. I didn't ask them to appear, nor the attorney that worked on it. This is just basically we had phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 was for the building envelope, the structure itself, in the grounds, the site work, all of that. Phase 2 was the interior build out. Originally, their application requested sales tax exemption on building materials, fixtures, furniture, everything, on the interior racking and everything needed for distribution, as well as their production equipment for manufacturing wine and juice. Well, it turns out that they realized that they don't need sales tax exemption on the production equipment because in New York State, you're exempted from that already. So they are they're changing their application, reducing their ask, basically just to the racking and the other interior equipment, not the production equipment. So they're just looking to clarify that, something we've been talking about for a few months and really just trying to finalize that so we can close that phase of the project as well, because that's beginning. So. That's it.
Questions on that?
What happens with the fees, Bill, on that, if it's not the same ask? You have
They
to
are
adjust-
reduced.
So you have to adjust the fees also?
Yes,
Okay.
but I will kind of remind the group that we adjusted our fee schedule 2 years ago and greatly reduced the expense when they're not requesting a pilot. So they did request a pilot and got a pilot in phase 1, so the fees were more significant, but they are lower here. So they're reduced, but it's not an enormous change.
Thank you.
So to that, it's not a refund? then, is it?
No, sir.
Refund.
Definitely not. Just less sales tax that they're using and then a slight reduction in fee.
And the employee threshold?
Not changing at all.
And
Exactly.
they've
Still,
been- and they're still well within,
they're not outside of a couple of waivers that, as you recall, that they were gonna, they're about 94% local labor.
The resolution is in your packet, and we need to consider a vote on that if anyone would like to make the motion to accept that resolution.
I've been busy today.
Yeah.
I'm looking at others.
You were jumping right in.
I'll make the motion.
Motion to accept the resolution for Royal Wine Corp. by Giovanni, second.
I'll second.
By Dean Timbury, thank you. Any other discussion on that resolution and motion? Roll call again?
Yes,
Jeffrey Chris.
Not a yes?
always.
Yes.
Jeff
I'm in
Chris.
favor.
Dean Tamburri.
Yes.
Susan Walsky.
Yes.
Mark Green.
Yes.
Giovanni Palladino.
Yes.
Dr. Vincent Oda.
Yes.
6 ayes, 1 absent, motion carries.
Very good. Thank you. Do we want to do the
You want to just finish this section?
HRP? Yeah, why not?
Sure. So HRP, we talked about it last month. We, after an RFP, we selected them as our environmental consultant to help us execute the EPA grant. So we've been working on an agreement with them, an engagement contract. Council did review it. You had requested that we added a not to exceed amount of $450,000, which is what their proposal was. That was included. Rudy, you're satisfied with the agreement and the language, Darren?
Yes, especially with respect to the not to exceed portion of it.
So just looking for your approval, authorizing me to execute the contract and move forward.
And Bill and I will report in our reports the first task force meeting with HRP. I think we had a Zoom call before that,
We did.
so that process is underway. But it looks promising and positive, I would say.
Yep.
Would anyone care to make the motion for the approval of this agreement?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Giovanni, thank you. A second by Doc Odock. Any other questions, comments? And what are we calling this? MOU or just a working agreement?
An engagement agreement,
I was just looking for the
it's a
right wording.
contract.
Yeah, okay. And I guess we better do a roll call again? This one's a little less clear.
There's not a resolution
Oh,
that-
okay.
that calls for a roll call,
Okay.
so you can
Yeah.
just do it.
I'll ask all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried, 6 in favor, 1 absence. Okay, I think we're resetting to the top
Yep,
of the agenda. Thanks for your cooperation and.
personnel policy was the only other thing, actually.
Yeah, I was thinking
Wanna wait on that?
you need to hear the governance committee report first.
Good idea.
Minutes, I think we're at.
Yeah.
A motion to approve the minutes except from March 19th meeting.
I'm off for it.
Motion by Doc Odock, thank you. Second to that motion? Mark, thank you. Your hand's working well. Any comments, additions, corrections?
Too many comments on.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. My chairman's report, I can make it fairly brief, but some neat stuff going on. The first task force meeting of the Brownfield effort took place on Monday. Giovanni and I attended. Did you have any thoughts on that meeting, Giovanni?
No, I thought it was a really good meeting, and I think that we have some really good ideas and potentially some really exciting projects to look at here in Orange County and take care of both development, positive development, and getting rid of some actually dirty sites.
Yeah,
So,
so it serves a neat purpose.
right.
And I asked a question at the meeting, are there companies that actually look to develop contaminated sites? And the answer was definitely yes, because of the various assistance through the process that encourages this effort.
It's exciting.
And we're in the process of putting together a list of sites in Orange County that could qualify and then choose for various reasons. It's gotta be something we can handle financially. Some of them, I think, can go well above the amounts of this grant and contributing financial aspects. So we expect to narrow down to several sites in the not too distant future. There was an Orange County partnership meeting. Well, I guess it was the Alliance for Balanced Growth, which is an arm of the partnership last night. Bill and I attended. A lot of municipal folks there, representatives, and it was mostly focused on the semiconductor and chip efforts in New York State, particularly related to Micron. And what was the lady's name? That's
Jennifer Waters from Go Semi, which is the state's office focused on semiconductor fab proliferation.
And she really highlighted how impacting this is to the whole state because of the various supply chains that she mentioned in some detail, literally hundreds.
Yep.
And could impact how many people work-wise? Was it 50,000?
And I think that was the number, and she also mentioned that for every job created by a chip fabrication center, there are 6 other jobs that outside the facility that are created as a result, all the spin-off and such.
Bill and I heard, or we were at that one economic development conference about 3 years ago where they really highlighted this Micron project. Maybe you weren't. I think I was with Montgomery then.
I think I was there.
Yeah, I think you were. But it's monumental, and they've been able to get control of, I think, just over 1,000 acres for this facility. And they said last night, this Jennifer, that the electrical demand that Micron is gonna need is more than New York City's total electric need, which
It's hard to
is,
fathom.
to me, it woke me up, no doubt about it.
Did they mention how they're getting the power?
Well, it's different in upstate New York. There's an abundance of power as opposed to the deficiency down here, and part of that is hydropower. They have a lot of hydropower.
Yeah,
Is this near Syracuse? Is this the
Yes.
It is,
Yes.
Lake New York, yeah.
Yep.
And I'll just mention, because you talked about that site in Onondaga and Clay, the municipal, the county and the economic development professionals there, they worked on that site for over 10 years
Yeah.
to try and get ready for a project like this. So keep that in mind as, we're moving through trying to do the same thing, and it's slower than we want sometimes, but it takes time.
And I think in that process, I evaluated the power availability or development availability. There's, I think, a 48-inch water main that flows either through the site or underneath from Lake Ontario to Onondaga Lake there in Syracuse. So it's just some shocking resources. And if I understood her correctly, a lot of the supply they need for semiconductor production cannot move by airplane or rail, which the rail part really shocked me because there's corrosive aspects to much of the supply, if I understood correctly.
So it's an advantage for us given our logistical, benefits. We have amenities.
With our highway infrastructure
Exactly.
here,
Yeah, they're talking.
definitely. Bill has most of these things in the, his report as well, but Vision Hudson Valley.
My report's getting
I
shorter
know,
every few
I'm
seconds.
trying to take priority here. The Vision Hudson Valley Out-of-Way dinner last week, and it was mentioned the quality of life study is underway that we're helping to finance. And the last thing on my mind was the regional food bank, the new facility over here in the town of Montgomery next to the Orange County Airport, is in approaching full operation. And they had an open house last week, and it was just neat to see. I'd encourage any of you, when you can, stop in. We can certainly set up a quick tour, but it's an impressive facility, and the needs are as much as ever, unfortunately. So that's my report, unless there's any questions. What did I leave out, Bill?
No, just a couple of things I can touch on. Want me to start?
Go for it, yes.
Great. So yeah, back to the EPA program, really excited about that. We're great, we're in motion, we're moving very swiftly. HRP has been great in helping to facilitate our meetings. We put a task force together, it really required for this process. Basically to identify sites, we came up with a master list of sites, and then next we're gonna prioritize them and figure out which ones we attack first with this grant. But I'll tell you, the task force is Jeff and Giovanni representing the board, of course myself. We have Connor Eckert from the Orange County Partnership, really our economic development attraction group. We have the Orange County Planning Commissioner, we Ellen Sorensen, we have Steve Gross, the Director of Economic Development, and Mike Torelli, our former chairman of this board, who's representing the county executive's office. So a really good team, worked very well. I thought we had a really good meeting. Again, next step is to kind of pare down that list and get going on it. So, and the other beauty of this grant is that there's a system, this ASAP system you use to charge back and be reimbursed. And we're ready to actually to put some charges in and get reimbursed. Reimbursement happens either the same day or the next day it's wired to you, so it's unbelievable.
nice.
That's a little different than the ones you were talking about, which is
Exactly.
most of them.
Hard to believe it's a federal program and they do that, but that's the case. So that'll be our next step. Kelly and I and our consultant are gonna be working on drawing that down. So that's that. Anshin's second 6-month report came out last week, the week before. They focused on compliance by applicants with insurance requirements, which is really a growing concern. We're realizing how we have to do a better job of having a handle on it. Through the process, we got a better understanding of the different types of insurances. Depends upon the closing documents for each project, and we've had 3 different general counsel during even this administration's time, and it's all a little bit different. So we've got a handle on it now. We're trying to work on that. So Anshin did delve into that, and a lot of focus was on our local labor policy and the process of us monitoring it. They went very in depth. We brought in our monitors. They are part of the dialogue with Anshin. We have 2 monitors, you know, one kind of backing up the other in case of conflicts. There's a little difference in the methodology of each, of how they're computing local labor and all of that. So that's obviously something we need to address. And then just some other recommendations on monitoring, including the language that's in our local labor policy that isn't as explicit as local labor, but when it comes to sourcing materials for the project, it says we'll use best efforts to source locally. It's very vague, but Anshin, of course, it's in our policy. They're looking for us to have documentation of proof of any of that. So we brought in both monitoring firms. We talked about that and some other things that Anshin raised. We're gonna have to consider the materials sourcing piece, because we're gonna have to start that process much earlier, labor monitoring, probably when an applicant is in the process here of applying and going through the public hearing, because they start to line all that up and start to source their materials. We have to be involved in that conversation very early on. So it becomes even more expensive to do the monitoring, it becomes more onerous, and we're involved in the process before we even really authorize any incentives. So, but those are things we do appreciate what Anshin's put together. Again, they're only looking for us to be better. We've continue to work really well with their team. Again, before they completed their report, they sent us a draft allowing us to respond, of course, review it, respond, suggest changes to any of it, further answer anything they've asked, so we appreciate them doing that. But the report went to the IG recently, and there is a copy in your packet. So any questions, please ask us, and Brian is on the line if you have any questions for him, but more solid recommendations of just how we can be better.
Comments, questions?
I have a question, your comment about material acquisition, right? And how that starts early, should that not start until they come through here and get approval?
Well, if we don't start until they do, we're already behind in that process because so much of that is being lined up. They're looking to source things. That's the
I
concern.
think Giovanni's saying they shouldn't start it.
Well, here's my concern, I mean, how do you come in and ask for money if you're already out there acquiring material?
Well, look, we have a couple other projects that are looking at multiple sites. You know, one outside the state. They go through that process for either potential project. That's why they go through having engineering and architecture. There's a big investment in multiple sites and some is
Yeah,
for
but
naught.
that's different than actually going out and like, for instance, ordering steel, that might.
Well, I
be-
don't mean ordering, but lining it up,
Well, yeah,
sourcing.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify.
Yeah, you would think they would have the comparisons right there in front of them, right? I
Right.
mean, that's what, I think to
Yeah.
your point, they show the comparisons immediately, like, they're doing that in a continuous process. So, and then, I was gonna say, like, is there a cost differential in there that would allow them to,
Our policy,
and I know it was somewhere, I thought it was like
I have to
20
review if that
whatever
applies to
percent or whatever,
materials
but-
as
but I don't know
well.
if that's from, like,
Labor has that
right,
20%.
I don't know if there was a percentage in that as well, and if they would, I mean, to me, is it whether they order it, I mean, that they would have the documents, I would imagine, that they can show up front to say that why they're sourcing it immediately, I would think, but.
Right.
I said, I don't know if there's a differential in that as well.
We can look into that, right?
yes, we're having another
I
issue with
don't
that.
recall a percentage. I did look at that recently.
I think as developers, you always understand the risks when you hire engineers and architects, that could be
Mhm.
bye-bye. I mean, that's something that's factored, but to actually, when you talk about material, that nobody would commit unless they think the project's happening or is going to happen. So that's just a balancing thing for us.
Is that something, Giovanni, obviously you know the answer to this, like, that if it's designed a specific way, maybe the materials are only available from specific I mean.
Oh, yeah,
providers?
absolutely. There's certain, like, for instance, let's take recently with the food bank, that generator, that's not made locally.
No.
You might be able to buy from a local distributor, but
Yeah.
that's probably made in the Midwest somewhere. And, you know, during COVID, some of that stuff was 18 months, 2 years out.
Yeah.
So there are specialties like that. And sometimes the developer will take that risk and go into contract.
I was thinking more like, I mean, even down to like windows or some sort of material that.
Yeah, I don't know if any
Exterior
window
or anything like that.
A lot of those materials aren't made locally.
Right.
A lot of them aren't even made in the state or in the country.
That's something, it's so vague, I mean, bricks, do we make bricks in Orange County anywhere?
We used to.
Not a lot.
We used
Is
to.
is it actually making it or, you know?
No, where they source them from, but yeah, where they come from,
That's what I'm
distributors.
saying, it's so vague, you know, it's almost like random, so it's probably something we need to look at and redefine better.
I think it's something maybe in our audit committee that handles our waivers that we should discuss.
I think it's
Maybe
easier to
as May 7th.
quantify labor than it is material.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dean, just to answer your question, the 20% differential, it does apply to labor and material. So if the cost difference is 20% or higher, then they are able to go with the outside source. But that does apply to materials as well.
I think council will have to clarify, in my aspect, anyway, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What constitutes 20%? Is it purchasing, fabrication, whatever? I think we would need to understand that. At least I would, anyway.
More to come on that.
Yes, thank you.
Just wanted to note that.
Anything else for Bill and his report? Moving on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did have a couple other things.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. So that was the interim report. Also, just as far as this, the headquarters here, you may have noticed, I actually swapped offices with Marty and Kelly, so they're in there. We took a lot of things off the wall and such because we have painting happening in 2 weeks. And then we have new carpet coming in. You'll recall that we extended our lease, and in exchange, the landlord is putting all new carpet in. The facility has been changed in 20-something years. So that's all happened, and you will see a really nice facelift here. So looking forward to that. A lot of that will be done by the next time we're together. Speaking of, just a reminder to everyone that we're on a different schedule in May. It's May 14th, our meetings. We are canceling the governance committee meeting that day at 3, so that May 14th will start with 4 p.m. finance, followed by the board meetings at 5. Just a reminder on that. And the last thing is you all have at your place a flyer for the Boy Scouts annual fundraiser that's coming up on May 20th. In addition to honoring the new president of Mount St. Mary College, Dr. Robert Gervasi, it's also honoring Chris Brothers Orchard. So we had this last year where they were honored. So again, congratulations to Jeff.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And if anyone wants to join me there and in support of Jeff and his family, I'm certainly happy to have you come with us. But congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's everything.
And you were honored last year at that same event.
It's true.
Bill, can you just go back 1 second? So May 14th is the IDA meeting.
Correct.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have the 7th for an audit.
Correct.
Is that still?
That is still on.
It is still on.
Yep.
Yeah, good catch.
The agenda is growing, including today. So it's, yeah, we need that meeting.
Okay.
I think we're good with Bill's report. Committee reports, finance, Mark, please. You're on.
So, not too out of whack, but there are some new expenses that should come to light. Real quick, I think it's page 5 for you all. But if you go down, you'll see professional fees were substantially higher. Part of that was our annual 401k expense, our annual expense for that, and also a portion of this quality of life. If we go down, you'll actually see an expense for shovel ready. As mentioned several times, that's partial payment to our consultant for the EPA, the brownfield grants. As far as our investments go, there's really nothing to talk about, probably for a month or two on that, as that comes due. But real quick on some of our expenses, again, I mentioned the brownfields. We had an increase in legal services because of our the handbook, the policy in the handbook. We also had more on the MediaCom lawsuit. There's some new expenses as the quality of life report card, kind of ramps up or is in high swing. Also, just want to talk about, we had some pass-through costs for Royal Wine as far as, labor and such. And we also had Legoland, which again was additional. And then we had our audit, which was a big chunk, $19,000 plus on that. And that really, again, those were just some expenses that were kind of a little bit out of the norm, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Other than that, though, real quick, we did have a CD come due. And so when you look at, we actually had revenue of roughly $67,000 versus expenses. So our net income for the month was actually a positive just under $9,000. Any questions?
Thank you for all you do on this.
I don't do anything. Kelly, Marty, and Bill do all the work. I am the eye candy.
And the committee recommended the payables and financials for approval to the board, which kind of goes without saying,
But thank you for saying it.
And I might ask, we consider those for a motion and vote while we're talking finances.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Giovanni, second to that one.
Second.
Thank you, Dean. And this is to accept the March 2025 financials and the approval of the March-April payables. Any questions, other discussions on that? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
In favor. Opposed, the same? Motion carried, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you. Governance Committee, we're going all over on this agenda, aren't we? I think it's working out well though. The main piece of business, and I, again, was substituting for Linda Muller, our chairwoman for that governance committee. And the main issue, or the main discussion point, was the personnel policy. And I'll go over a couple brief changes there. And that will flow into our consideration to adopt that personnel policy. And you might recall, this has been worked on by the committee for a period of time. And council, with Rudy's help, has reviewed our questions, made some adjustments to the policy. And a couple of those things just to highlight, we changed a couple of holidays, taking out Good Friday and Election Day and New Year's Eve half day. And I think that all makes sense, right, Bill?
Sure.
We left in the New York paid sick leave and paid family leave benefits. We're not 100% sure if it's mandatory, but I think the committee felt it was appropriate to have those in.
The reason, if I can interject,
Yes.
that we're not sure is because there's the age-old question of whether or not we're a government entity. You know, I'm always describing it as quasi-government, but that doesn't really mean anything, it's just we're close. So if we're a government agency, then we have to provide those benefits, but the attorney's gonna do a little more research to see if we have to or not. We'll discuss it. If we don't have to, we'll discuss it again and see if we want to remove them, but as Jeff said, there's also, you know, a thought that we'd like to provide that benefit to staff, so. We
And-
may revisit that again.
Mhm. And there was update related to some of the gender descriptions and a question if the board needed to sign onto the personnel handbook. The answer is no, we're responsible for approving it.
Yes.
And there's a number of other fairly minor things, but we made that. We're recommending to the full board that it become effective as of tonight.
Correct.
Okay. There was one question related to COVID. There was a period of time till July 31st of this year that one program continues. So it's still going to be in the handbook in a small way, but it'll automatically phase out when we hit that date.
It will state in there that it expires July 31st. And if I could just clarify one other thing, you have a copy of this personnel policy in your packet. We're looking for your approval, the adoption of that as is, but with two changes that came up today. One, Kelly is referenced or her position of Director of Administration, but there's an address associated with it and it was wrong. So we clarified that. And as Jeff said, we took out Election Day. It's one of the days we pulled out. There's another reference to Election Day in like a following paragraph that needs to be removed as well. So we'll be looking for your adoption with those two changes made today. Is that all good, Rudy?
Yes,
Okay.
sums it up well.
Any questions, comments? Anyone care to make a motion to adopt that policy as of the time of this vote, I guess?
Yeah.
Make a motion.
Motion by Doc Odoc, a second?
Motion or question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No emotion.
Motion.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a question.
How about we get a second, we'll go to your question.
Okay.
I will
Second by Mark, thank you. Question, Susan?
The removal of the election day as a day off, is there, I don't know how to phrase this, an option in there for them to take time off to go vote?
Yes, that's something we talked about is that we'll give them whatever consideration they need to vote that day,
Okay,
just not the whole day off.
okay, was my concern.
I also
Done.
made a comment earlier that maybe we should look at other ideas and see what they have in terms of the holidays. For-
Which I did. That is the sheet, I don't think I have it with me anymore, but somebody had that matrix. Yeah, I asked all my IDA colleagues in the region, so we have theirs in there. I even asked the local nonprofit to see if there's a difference. So the first column is our current, and then the second is what we're proposing, much more in line with the other IDAs.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a motion, and a second. Any other questions, comments related to the personnel policy? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Good to have that off our plate, right, Dean?
You guys worked on that a long time.
And is there anything else we need to cover tonight?
I don't believe so.
I made a mess out of this agenda, but I think we got it done.
Got the job done.
I think we're set, yeah.
Very good. We good, Rudy?
Went through the whole agenda, yes.
Yep. Motion to approve. Would anyone care to
To
make?
adjourn.
Giovanni? Yes.
To adjourn.
Mo-
Sorry,
Motion
sir.
Motion to adjourn.
I've been doing
To
too
approve
many
the adjournment.
approvals.
You got it.
Okay. Second to that adjournment motion.
Oh, hell, I've been missing.
Thanks, Mark. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those the same. We're